Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
You can't always get what you want. Yep. That should be
so
the
true.
theme song in your department.
I think so.
Yeah, we're talking about the breakdown of relationships and family law, and we have our experts here with us, David Halkett, partner at McQuarrie Hunter, and Sarah Morrison, associate, talking about, breaking up of a family, coming to see you, everyone's in tears, and then you get to the money, then you get to the kids, right? And the kids, we've talked about that in the last segment. Now we're talking about the money and the kids, and child support. So what are the general issues that you see around child support?
Well, child support is based on the federal child support guidelines, which were adopted.
So federal again?
There's federal. They came in first,
yeah.
And then the provinces all adopted them.
Okay.
And the guidelines came into effect in April 1st, 1997, and it was in reaction to a woman in Quebec, I believe it was, who brought a charter challenge because at the time child support was taxable to her.
So that went to the Supreme Court then?
It might have been just federal court.
Okay.
And the decision was that what she was arguing was discriminatory because mostly women were the ones who were paying tax on child support. And why should I pay tax on money that's there to take care of my child and the father's child? So the federal government changed the law, so it's no longer taxable.
So if you get $1,000, we'll pick a number, $1,000 a month. That's $1,000 in your pocket, right?
And it's after tax dollars for the payor, and
it kind of seems silly that you would tax something you've already paid tax on.
Yeah, and stuff. So what happened? They changed it, and it's based on guidelines, number of children, income, and province where you live. The payer, wherever they live, use the guidelines for that province. And so now you argue over what the income is. Usually if it's just T4 or your line 150 is pretty straightforward for your income.
But then there's people who have a business, they run stuff through their business, right?
That's the difficult
So
ones.
they would have their car run through their business, and they maybe have expenses run through their business that isn't declared on their T4.
Exactly. So that ends up having to get added back in. So the arguments are over what the income is, and then determine how many children, where the children live, where the payor is, and you basically take a guideline and poke the number in.
So Sarah, you must get all kinds of skeletons in the closet come out about people, hiding their income, right? Like they say, well, you're sure, Bob, he says he only makes $30,000 a year, but really, here's the real number because he's a drywaller and he does it all for cash. And his van, he runs through, especially, people who work in the labor part of the world where they can do a lot for cash, or they're
for sure.
Yeah, actually.
Bartenders, all the tips.
I had one with a tattoo artist where we.
I know somebody whose daughter was dating a guy, and he was a apparently world famous tattoo artist. He flew all over the world doing, and it's all cash.
They do guest shots basically at other parlors, and that's exactly what happened on my case. So there is a huge range of jobs out there that can have a huge range of income. So, like for example, with the tattoo artist, if you look at Stats Canada or other sources, typically they're making minimum wage, but then you get these offshoots of people that are very talented and earn extremely high. So in those cases, what we often did on the contract that I worked on, we could use a section of the child support guidelines, section 19, to impute income. So there are cases out there that will look at the lifestyle of the payor. And there's a great case out of Alberta.
He's driving a Mercedes-Benz and all this stuff, right?
Well, yeah, Simpson and Bettinson, I think it is, out of Alberta, and that was looking at a farmer's lifestyle, and he declared really low income, yet drove luxury vehicles, bought braces for his kids and his new kids out of his new family, and all of this, and they imputed almost double the income to him. So there's ways to get around it.
People who are of criminal activity, right?
Exactly.
Like if a guy sells drugs and he's got a Lamborghini, but he makes $20,000 a year.
Those guys tend to want to keep it out of court because usually
baby
mother knows exactly where the money was coming from, right?
Right.
But as Sarah said, I had a guy years ago. He claimed he made $18,000 a year, and then he drove up to see me to provide me with his financials in a brand new, at the time, a Hummer, which was $80,000-$90,000.
Sure.
So there's always that issue, and determining the income can be tough. The downside is if you're the person who wants to impute income, you can say it's cash, you can say that, but you often have no evidence as to what that amount actually is.
That's the great thing about cash, right? Is that there's no way to know.
Exactly.
So how do you get there?
Well, I mean, when I was dealing with these cases on the contract and it was in provincial court, we would actually end up in a hearing, and we would have our client give evidence as to the lifestyle they had, that they ate at restaurants. Some of them have even contacted the former employers and said, "Hey, I wanted to book with this tattoo artist," and gotten
how much would it cost?
How much would it cost? And or just general inquiries about, well, what do massage therapists have a one-step of practice? What does it look like for rental costs? And so you can really sort of find out information about the realities of those types of jobs that aren't straightforward T4. Because it happens on a huge percentage of our cases. What about companies where they declare dividends?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're not declaring dividends, and their income's half of what it used to be.
And also, how many days a week is someone working? Like Sarah used the example of massage therapists. They can make decent money working 2.5 days a week. Well, should they be working 5? If someone works 4 days a week, should they be bumped up to what they would make on 5? So those are the kind of arguments that come in to determine what someone's income.
And the court will look at that. The argument is capacity to earn. So there's a whole line of cases. It's not what you actually earn, it's what's your capacity. So the court will look at past years of income. For example, if you earned $60,000 for 5 years and all of a sudden the year you separate, you're making $25,000, the court's going to look at what you look at that and say, well, it looks to me like you have the capacity to earn, you're just choosing not to.
Or if you are incorporated and you're leaving money in your business just as retained earnings above what you would need, the court can say, well, that money is available for support purposes. And whether you take it out or you don't, you're going to pay on the higher amount.
So have anybody ever connected the dots? Like, well, this guy, he's like I said, he's a drywall guy and he's making $120,000 a year doing drywall. He only claims he makes 30, and the rest is all cash. Does the left arm ever talk to the right arm about, well, the tax guy should figure this out? Or
well, usually
that's not their job.
Yeah,
right?
Usually it's not.
It's just an interesting element.
It is, and often a lot of people in that are always afraid that the other spouse is going to rat them out to CRA. Is that some leverage? No, because it isn't insofar as if one party complained to CRA, made an anonymous report, and CRA reassessed for the years prior, it could be a family debt that both parties have to pay because tax wasn't paid on money that was income
during the
relationship. So
it can come back to bite you.
Exactly. So I never recommended my clients to do anything like that for the reason it's not in your best interest to do it. If someone else does it, that's they do a spot audit or whatever, that happens, but you could get hit with a big debt charge that you weren't expecting.
Interesting. Okay. Now, what happens with the issues around guardianship? So I guess that guardianship is who has the right to suggest what the child's going to do.
Yeah, the guardianship has under our Family Law Act, there's Section 41 has a number of responsibilities. They include daily care of the child, educational decisions, passports,
religion.
All series of them. When you live with the other parent with the child, you're deemed to be a guardian, and unless the court otherwise orders or you otherwise agree, you have all the same responsibilities under that section.
So when they're with you, you are the guardian.
Exactly.
And then we're with the ex, they're the guardian at that time?
You're both deemed guardians, and you both have the right to make day-to-day decisions. If you weren't living with the parent with the child, then you're not deemed a guardian. You have to apply to be a guardian.
Yeah, you're presumed guardians if you're living together when the child was born, but we have a lot of cases with dating relationships, for example, where there was perhaps a surprise baby. They didn't live together when the child was born, so the dad in those cases is not a presumed guardian. He's only a contact parent, and that can get really contentious when dad says, well, I want to be involved with this child's life, but he actually has to apply for guardianship and
do criminal records checks and checks through what the Ministry of Children and Family Development.
It's quite a process. They have to swear a Form 34 affidavit, and if the mom doesn't agree, doesn't want that person involved, they can, I've got cases like that right now where they're fighting over whether the dad should be a guardian or not.
Yeah. So the thing that you want to be a guardian, when we talked earlier about moving,
Sure.
if you're a guardian, you have the right to at least argue there shouldn't be a move. If you're not a guardian, and you're just a contact parent, you have no way to fight that if the other parent wants to move. And so your contact may become meaningless because the person has moved far away. And you don't have a say in that. So there's a whole bunch of series of things why you want to be a guardian.
So back to support for a moment. Is it typically still the man that's paying in most cases in your experience?
In my experience, yes, because they still tend to be the one who makes the most money, and the children, for the most part, still live at least the majority of the time with the moms.
And in my cases, I would say it's not evenly split, but I actually have a fair number of cases where mom and dad earn relatively equal and there is shared parenting. So in those cases, no one's paying child support. So I've quite a few of those, actually.
It has changed over the time, though, Zach, in that there are more, in my experience from my practice, where the mothers are paying.
There's so many more, like if you look at law, for example, there's more women going into law school, there's more women going into medicine, there's more women going into the pharmaceutical. Like, I mean, women are going to university more than men, therefore the
roles are reversing. You're actually seeing a lot more stay-at-home dads now, or dads that are earning less income.
I see advertising. I was at busboard the other day, I'm walking by and there's a dad with a kid in his arm doing something in the kitchen. The ad was, I don't know, can't remember what it was for, but it was like, this isn't targeted at mom, this is at the stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely, there's
but the court's blind to that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who is paying. It's just whoever has the most money and where the children are paying. So even if the mom earned more money, but if the child is with her more than with the dad who earns less, the dad would still be paying
on his income.
Right.
And if the child is or the children are equal or a shared situation, they do what they call offset, what each would pay, and you pay whoever owes the most would be paying that amount.
All right. We're just getting started here, and when we come back, we're going to pick it up. We're talking about children, custody, how it affects you, and it's probably for a lot of people, maybe not you, maybe you have a son or a daughter going through this. It's interesting stuff. Family law, we're talking with David Halkett, partner there at Macquarie Hunter in Surrey, Central City, Surrey, and Sarah Morse is an associate. We'll pick up the conversation next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.